had once said that a woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman. Good morning and welcome to today's episode of Women Empowerment Program, still being organized and sponsored by the Rule of Law and Empowerment Initiative, also known as Partners West Africa Nigeria P1. And my name is Nkem Okereke, your host for the show, with my co-host Ijoma Igwe. Our topic for today is women and their voices. This is actually a special one for us today because 49.6%, which is approximately 50% of the world population, is made up of women. So we cannot succeed if half of us are held back because of the silence of women. And there is also this popular quote by Malala Yousafzai, which is, there are two powers in the world. One is the sword, second is the power of the pen. Then there is a third power stronger than both, and that is the power of women. We will go on a short break now and then come back with our guest for the topic. Please stay tuned.
Welcome back. To discuss the topic Women and Their Voices today, with us is a special guest who is a women's human rights advocate and gender equality expert. She has served as a program manager in Oxfam's Pan-Africa and is currently the country director at Amnesty International, an initiative which seeks to challenge suspected perpetrators of human rights abuses with areas of specialization such as housing rights, gender, children's rights, armed conflict, and the human rights responsibilities of corporates, among others. Please welcome with us today our guest, Ms. Osai Ojigo. Good morning, ma'am. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, ma'am. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, ma'am. So we'll ask you the first question we have for today. When you hear women and their voices, what does it mean to you and why is it important?
For me as a woman, it's important because I want to be heard. So when I hear about voices and what does it mean for women, it means that women have a critical role to play in development, in their life, and in taking decisions that concerns them. It also means that they can express themselves in ways that only they can do, and they don't need anybody else to speak on their behalf. So protecting a woman's voice is actually linked to her identity, and most importantly, independence.
Okay. So you think it is important because it helps us get independent, like as a women?
It means that women can actually express what they want and how they want to be treated, what their aspirations are, and how they want to achieve it. Oftentimes in our society, there's a lot of roles and responsibilities linked to your existence as a woman. But when you have a voice, you are able to dispel some of the misconceptions by yourself. You are able to share clearly what your needs are. And that can also help improve how other people treat you.
Okay, that's very good. You know, sometimes when, I like the explanation because some people think it's maybe the singing voice or the blah, voice, you know. At least now you have explained very well what this voice is. It helps us to be, it helps people appreciate women better. It makes us to be appreciated better. Yeah, so thank you very much. I'm going to ask you again, what do you think are the factors that affect women or hinder them from finding their voices?
There are many factors, but maybe we can start from when a girl child is born.
Okay.
So there's a lot of expectations, particularly in African culture, about the roles our children play in society. For a long time, children were supposed to be seen and not heard. So that's the first foundation. So as a child, if you grew up in a family where children are not allowed to speak at all, so you learn to internalize your opinions, If people hurt you, you tend to keep quiet about it.
Okay, so by children, I'm sorry for cutting you short. By children, you mean boys and girls now?
Boys and girls now,
Okay.
below the age of 18.
All right.
But in recent times, there's been a lot of advocacy about having children to have their spaces. But research has shown that when it comes to the girl child, her voice begins to diminish as she gets older. So from the time that she's born up till the time she gets into primary school, there's really no difference between a boy and a girl. They play alike, they say the same things, they cry, they laugh, they play, and everybody accepts them for who they are.
Yeah.
They get into primary school, and then they begin to be taught how to respect authority, what to do when teachers come into the room, how to engage with your classmates, how to share things with other people. But the significant difference in terms of how girls' voices are heard compared to boys begin to manifest in secondary school. Because in secondary school, girls are beginning to enter puberty. And so that means that girls are beginning to form as women. And already society starts projecting duties which they expect women to have on girls, and also certain gender biases. So you hear things like, you're a girl, you shouldn't speak until you've been asked to speak, which they will not tell boys, because boys are expected to be assertive. They're expected to take their place as leaders in society. And if a woman is quite outspoken, it's considered a negative thing. So that practice starts happening when they're in secondary school. By the time they get into university, it now becomes a role play to show that, look, you are going to be a mother, a wife one day. So a good woman behaves in a particular way. So you are supposed to be sweet when you speak. You're supposed to be polite all the time, even though people are annoying you. And you're supposed to accept whatever comes to you with grace. But we are saying, no, women also have feelings. They also have a right to aspire. And they also have a right to question when things are not going right, especially when it affects them. And so you find that a woman's voice changes in terms of access as she gets older. But when you become an adult and you are now your own person, it's even more important that you stand for yourself. And to be able to do that, you need to be able to know how to use your voice, how to speak, when to speak, and how to make sure that you are heard in society.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this. Sorry. This, you just talked about women not being able to speak until they are spoken to, until they are asked to speak. But I say it is general, like, is it like a global thing or an African Nigerian thing? You know, because when you started with, it starts from when they are born, okay, they play alike with the boys, but then as they start getting older and entering their secondary school, they start having different orientation based on their gender. So now I would say, from what you're saying, that society, right?
Yes.
Because this has to do with where they found themselves in. Now I want to ask, is it an African Nigeria thing, or it is what we see globally or something? I don't know.
It's actually global, but there are varying degrees of the repression of women's voices.
Okay.
So for example, in African societies, our cultures tend to insist that girls take their turn after boys. Then by the time you go into the Middle East, there are some societies that close off boys from girls. So girls don't even mix with boys. So which also limits the opportunities where they could speak. But by the time you enter...
I'm talking about culture now.
Exactly, about culture. And by the time you enter the global north countries, like in Europe, for example, and Scandinavian countries in particular, because they seem to have closed the gender gap more successfully than other countries, you'll find that you find very little difference between opportunities for boys and girls to speak, to participate in society and development, and actually to play a more active role. So it then becomes more about your person. Are you an outspoken person? Are you someone that likes to be in the spotlight compared to your gender?
All right. So thank you very much. Idoma, I don't know if you have anything to ask her.
No, I just wanted to ask, with the culture, like the way we have it in Africa, do you think it's doing more harm to the voices of women, or is it, how would I put it, does it have more effect when you compare to the global scene? Does the culture we have here in Africa or in Nigeria, does it have more effect on hindering the voices of women?
So it's also mixed, because we also have different ethnic groups in the country and in Africa as a continent. But there's always an underlying factor, which is what are the expectations of a particular sex. And that's why talking about gender balance, gender equality, gender sensitivity is quite key. And also about addressing religious beliefs in terms of the roles of women and girls in the home. So it tends to be linked to family life. We're at a stage now in our development as Africa where most people wouldn't mind now that a woman is flying a plane. It wasn't like this 20 years, 10 years ago. But people still believe that that woman that is flying a plane needs to be a submissive wife at home, needs to pick up the children from school, needs to look after the mother-in-law when she's sick, needs to go to the market, and then when the husband comes back from work, needs to prepare a fresh pot of soup.
So
those expectations haven't changed for the home.
Expectation is still there.
Yes. So that's the difference, and that is why we call it the double burden for women. And when women speak up to say, no, I need help, they make it look like as if you're a weak woman. But actually, it's because one person cannot actually carry out all these tasks successfully and still be happy and smiling and have enough energy to do things for themselves.
So this is where delegation of some duties come in. So I guess this delegation of duties will have to be discussed in later days. But for now, we'll go on a short break and then come back and continue this wonderful discussion on women and their voices with our darling Miss Osai Ojigo. Please stay tuned.
Welcome back from the break. Before we went on the break, we were discussing factors that could affect women from finding their voices. We talked about culture, religion, and society, and how it has affected women's voices. So, but apart from these factors you've listened, do you think, how has this affected women's participation in politics and social economic activities? So apart from the culture, religious, and society, we want to know how can hinder women's voice affect women's participation in politics and economic activities?
That's a very good question, because if you don't have a voice, you don't tend to aspire for leadership, because a leader needs to be someone that will speak on behalf of others and would also be able to advocate for their people. So when you decide to go into politics, it means that you must be confident in yourself, confident that when you speak, people will listen and that you will move them to action. So if you grow up thinking that women cannot participate in those roles, then it hinders you automatically, psychologically, mentally. The other part is if you see your role within the political party as supportive rather than actually vying for political office. So in that case, you limit yourself. And that limitation comes because there are certain cultural expectations. Women are not supposed to be in a gathering of men discussing what. And then many times some of these meetings happen at night. And we already have this belief. So this one now has even gone beyond culture and religion. It's now more about the kind of pop culture we have. We see it in the movies. We see it in musicians and the way they live their lives. Decent women, in quotes, should not be seen at night.
She should be home by 5, 6.
And oftentimes, and oftentimes these meetings happen at night because you're a politician does not mean you don't have other things you're dealing with during the day. So at night is where you plan your strategy, when you have to move things around. So as a woman, the environment might not be safe. So you consider, if I want to aspire for this office, can I actually stay at night? And as a woman, can you actually challenge the political structures to say, this meeting time is not suitable for me?
Yeah.
Can we have it at another time?
Okay.
But for you to do that, you need to know the right people to speak to, and then get other people to support that ambition. The other thing finally is, if you want to win, you need the voters to vote for you. So as women, how can we use our voice to rally that support? Oftentimes, we've had to rely on men, rely on either family members, our brothers, our fathers, and even in some cases, our sons, in order for them to clear the platforms for us to speak. But with the experience Nigerian women have had with the political process in Nigeria since inception, you find out that there are more women coming out. There are more women speaking because they've seen other women do it and succeed. Even if they've not won political office, they've seen that they've kept at it. So increasingly, women are learning by watching that you can also do it and aspire for office.
Yes, just to add to what she said, remember there was a time when the male political aspirant is vying for a political election, it's the women that are supporting the man to win. And then when it's the turn of the woman, then you'll be looking for who are supporters. You don't see the men also trying to push.
Because it becomes strange to see a supposed supporter
vying for an elective election.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you one question, and that should be, I think our time, we are running out of time. So I'm just going to ask this one last question. So from your experience, what is your advice for women that are trying to find their voice, women that need to find their voice and strengthen them? What is your advice for them?
My advice is simple. Start from where you are.
Okay.
If you're at home, start speaking up about things that concern you. Okay. It will not be easy at first, but practice makes perfect.
Okay.
And in the institutions you're in, whether you're in school, whether in the office, volunteer for certain roles. If they're organizing an office party, be a part of it, because meetings would happen. You will need to participate in those meetings. You will need to make sure your contributions are well evidenced. And if you're in school, you don't need to be the president of the Law Society for you to succeed. You can vie to be the PRO. You can vie to be the secretary. And then from there, you begin to see how other people are using their voices for impact. Most importantly, learn from others, capacity building, go online. There are so many opportunities now. Listen to TED Talks. See how other people do it. And imagine yourself taking the stage and speaking your truth one day.
That's very good. So we are encouraged to try ourselves, try to be in positions, try to, not position, try to be in, how do I put it, like make ourselves available for functions and all in our workplaces, at homes, even in our religious institutions. So this helps us strengthen our voices, because this popular say of charity begins at home. Your voice must begin at home. You know, there is actually also a way to make our voices heard. You don't have to loud it or, you know, become rude with it. You just have to make your point known in a very acceptable manner. So when you start that way, you make yourself heard and you also strengthen your own voice, because it's actually important for all of us to have our voices heard. So I don't know, Ijoma, do you have other things to add?
Yeah, just to add to what you said, it's not by when you shout, that's when your voice will be heard. Okay, so like what she has told us, practice. Nobody is the monopoly of knowledge. Everything is there online. We can learn from them. She gave us example with the TED Talks. Practice so that when the opportunity comes, you know how to use your voice to create an impact.
So thank you very much, Ijoma, for that. And thank you, Miss Osai Ojigo,
My
for making
pleasure.
out time to be with us this morning. And our viewers, we thank you so much for making out time to watch this particular episode on women and their voices. Please always feel free to put in the comment section topics you would want us to attend to. Thank you very much again for listening, and please, we will see you again next week, Friday at 11 a.m. Please always make sure you watch our program. Thank you very much and see you next week. Bye.